Thank you for having me on OWASP's 20th anniversary event. I'll be speaking about vAPI, which is a vulnerable adversely programmed interface. It is kind of a lab that mimics or demonstrates OWASP API top 10 vulnerabilities as a part of like an exercise. So people get familiar with the categorization of API vulnerabilities, and development and implementation of APIs has been like increasing numerously on a day-to-day basis, and like be it through custom routes or default routes that come as a part of framework that you're using for your project or product. And API do act as a business logic and catalyst to implementation of features to the application. However, a poorly configured interface may drag down the entire security posture of the organization, and this often leads to data breaches. And in 2021, we can say that we are comfortable enough to consider APIs as a separate entity in the security processes that we do, vulnerability assessment or like a DevSecOps process. So vAPI is a small attempt at spreading awareness about API security. So yeah, let's get started. So we'll be looking at what exactly is vAPI, how do we install it, the OWASP API top 10 project on which it is based, then vulnerabilities in web applications versus vulnerabilities in APIs. We are going to be looking at a quick demo on the vAPI, and we will also see the contributors to this project. So a little bit about me. I am Tushar Kulkarni. I work as a security developer at Home Security. I work as a part of team which ensures customers vulnerability management and assessment. I also lead the OWASP Nagpur chapter. We have application security meets on alternate months. So we try to bring speakers to the chapter from around the globe, speak on latest and cool research, whatever they have done. And apart from maintaining vAPI as a part of my GitHub project, I also try to put other stuff on GitHub, like small snippets or tools. So you can also check my GitHub. I'll mention the handle at the end of the presentation. And I also like to play CTFs and do bug bounties in my free time. That's about me. And yeah, so vAPI, the name vulnerable adversely programmed interface, why it is not a vulnerable application programming interfaces. The earlier version of vAPI used a LAMP stack, let's say a PHP MySQL, and the roadmap is that we are trying to implement it as a good API, but the name still remains the vAPI because it is an adversely programmed interface, and it mostly is based on PHP and MySQL stack. And the OWASP API top 10 project, which lists out the top 10 vulnerabilities that occur in APIs. So if you are a security engineer, you will get acclimatized with the categorization of API vulnerabilities, and you will also get to learn the very basic vulnerabilities that might occur in REST API. So vAPI is a REST API, not like a SOAP service or something like that. And if you are a developer, you get to have a look at the vulnerable code. So you can have a look at how this code is vulnerable, because the vAPI itself is a vulnerable code, right? And you also get to made to think of possible ways to mitigate the issues. So once you look at the issues, you are made to think about it, right? Like how I can fix this issue. So it benefits both, let's say, security engineers as well as developer, and yeah, like other enthusiasts can also benefit from it. Installation, we have two techniques. The whole project is Dockerized, so you can either go like in a Docker way or like install it manually. If you have a Docker and Docker Compose binaries in your system, you can just do the git clone project, go to the root of the project and run a daemon process like Docker Compose fd. and that will just shoot up the containers, and you'll be able to access the vAPI interface in your browser on port 80. Other than that, you can always install it or use it or launch the service manually. Again, you can clone the project, but this prerequisites include PHP and MySQL. So a PHP binary has to be there and a MySQL service has to be there. You have to import the database that is provided in the project into the MySQL what do you say, MySQL service, and you can configure the credentials accordingly into the .env file, which is a part of a Laravel project. So we are trying to migrate the project from PHP MySQL stack to like a good Laravel interface, which follows good API practices. And then after everything is configured, you can go to the Laravel home. That should be vAPI/vAPI, and you can just run the command php artisan. This will launch the Laravel server, and you should be able to access the uh, the vAPI or the interface as such. And this just launches the API, but in order to like see what API calls do you get or what endpoints are available to you, you can always go to the documentation. So there's always a documentation available. So whichever is your host, the /vAPI part will give you the documentation of all the available API calls. And like I said, it is divided into 10 exercises, starting from 1 to 10. So accordingly, you can get your API calls. For testing this in this environment, you can always use something like Postman. So we currently provide a Postman collection and environment, which in which you can set the environment variable for your host. So you don't have to really go into each request and paste your host there if it changes. The environment also tries to maintain the other environment variables such as authentication keys that are automatically generated on your login requests. So currently it supports Postman collection and environment. That is what we are providing. And soon we will be like migrating to open API documentation. So and like contributions are always welcome. You can always visit the vAPI GitHub link and try to contribute maybe. You can also use MITM proxies like OWASP or burpsuit, which will help you conduct advanced attacks, such as, let's say, you want to check for credential stuffing or vulnerabilities like that. So at times, intruder tools like intruder or some OWASP functionality can help you do that attack. So it is not entirely necessary, but it may help you in some of the launching some of the attacks on that API. Coming to OWASP API top 10 project, it is again a OWASP project, and it was the first version came out in 2019, and the entire project is based on OWASP API top 10, I would say, because it follows examples from this project only. So a big shout out to this project, OWASP API top 10. You can see a lot of injection is not at the top, like as compared to web applications. So that's the difference. And there are other vulnerabilities like broken object level authorization or function level authorization. And you will get to see these kind of vulnerabilities in the vAPI lab. Now coming to vulnerabilities in web applications versus vulnerabilities in APIs. So we have not seen cross-site scripting being a part of APIs at a large scale, I would say. Let's say the content type is strictly managed, or the content type is properly managed, unless there is a way to sniff or manipulate the content type. APIs are, I would say, I mean, we don't get to see cross-site scripting attacks on APIs, or unless the content is consumed by a front end and it is not sanitizing the whatever data is coming in. But at the API endpoint result, we don't get to see cross-site scripting much. But on the other hand, we get to see a lot of broken authorization and access control. So let's say a misconfigured JWT token or an IDOR, an insecure direct object reference. So these kind of vulnerabilities occur in API a lot. So I would say uh, broken access control is something that I try to look for a lot in APIs, and these kind of vulnerabilities, they do occur a lot in APIs. Again, a dynamic assessment on web application would give you a different result. I mean, not different, I would say, but a good summary of results as compared to web APIs, because testing web APIs requires a lot of context and business logic and roles, or roles are available. So I think the DAST engine is hardly like able to comprehend these kind of factors when considering the scan. So that's how it kind of differs, and we consider API testing or APIs to be a separate entity in the security process. And API security is a new goal, I would say, because of its platform independence. Uh, like you can use APIs and just integrate into any application. It can be a mobile application, a desktop, or even a web application. So that is something that that makes it a platform independent interface, I would say. And yeah, it all the APIs are also like the core part of business logic. So whatever features or implementations that you are doing as a part of your product mostly relies on the APIs that you are that the front end is consuming. So yes, and uh, APIs are like also part of major part of modern web applications. So we have seen, we come from traditional web application back in the days where dynamic pages used to load or refresh, load new data on a refresh rather than So now what we see is pages making asynchronous calls to APIs and updating the dynamic data on the fly. So that is something that is cool, and we have come a long way. So yeah, and again, automation is heavily followed these days, I would say, and APIs play a crucial role in that. So that makes not just API but API security to be something to get familiar with. The project roadmap includes Laravel migration, as I said before. We are still in the progress of migrating the whole project to Laravel. This includes following, good API practices, and then maybe trying to add more challenges. Currently, we are focusing on like migrating only the available 10 challenges to the Laravel project. Later on, we will be adding more challenges, I would say. Then we are also working on acknowledgement for completion of challenges, something like a dashboard, which will give you a sense of accomplishment that you have, yes, you have completed this much, and now you know about these vulnerabilities. So it's not like a hard lab, I would say. It just uh, makes you get familiarized with API vulnerabilities. So it is like a CTF, but it's not that hard, I would say. But if you are a beginner, I think you should definitely try this. And this is like a long-term milestone that I'm looking at, that the API being a totally crowdsourced playground for API security challenges. So people can maybe contribute and then push it to the project. So this will help the whole community to, spread awareness about API security. Let's have a look at a quick demo. Maybe we will look at one challenge. I will set this just a second. So So this is one of my instances. We can see that there is no Docker process running. We can go to the API directory. We can just load start our service using the command. So it has created a DB service, an Apache and a PHP MyAdmin is not that necessary. It's just for debugging process. But again, you can always use it. And we can also launch our Postman, in which the the collection will be imported.
Any issues, Tusha? Hello?
No. Are you able to see my screen?
It's minimized.
Just a second. Can you see now?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry if
no
it is not.
issues.
Yeah. So this is my server that is running the vAPI interface. You can see there are 3 services that are running, and I have added the domain name to my vAPI environment. You can see. Okay. So the first challenge or the first exercise focuses on broken object level authorization. So it has like a user endpoint and a post request which creates a user. So I can just say like something like username would be Tushar, and let's say I want to sign up for a course on AppSec 101, and okay, anyway, the API calls will always show you the password on a clear text or the MITM tools as well. So let's just keep something like a dummy password. Let's try to send the request. Okay, my proxy is on, so we need to turn it off. Let's try that again. Okay, it says duplicate entity. Let's try and change the username. Yeah, we got our user, which is roottusk2, and our ID is 7. So once that is done, you can see the environment. It has updated the API 1 auth. That is a basic authentication token that we will use in the next call, which is a get user. So what get user does is it gets the user details by providing the user ID. So let's just say our user ID was 7, and we would like to get the details that we stored into the database. So yeah, we got our details, the username, name, and course that we have signed up for. Now you can see in the environment that the API 1 ID is set to 7, and that's how basically API calls happen. Like right, we provide a ID as a parameter, and that's where broken object level authorization comes. Let's try to provide maybe 6 instead of 7 and see if we get any other users data. Okay, that's strange. Let's try 5. Yeah, so we are able to get another user's data. That is me again. So let's just try with 4 maybe. Yeah, and we can try again with 1 because it can be like, and yeah, so we are able to get other users data, and that's where our flag is. So this was just a short demo of broken object level authorization, and yeah, so these are another exercises that I would suggest you can have a look at by yourselves, but that's the whole idea around vAPI. You can also use Verbsuit as your companion for intercepting the requests. For certain challenges or categories, I would say there are some resources provided as a part in the resources folder. So some challenges are like embedded into, let's say, a mobile application, or something, some hint is provided. So you can always refer to the resources folder or the documentation again. Yeah, so let me show you the documentation. So just a second. So this is how the documentation looks like when you visit the host on which the vAPI interface is hosted, and the documentation just tells you like, or gives you a description like you can register yourself as a user, and that's it. Or is there something else? So I would say a description for each category is given, which you can refer, or for which you can get a hint. So this is something that you can look at as well. And yeah, uh, that's the demo, or the one challenge that I wanted to show. Uh, Feel free to check out the rest of the challenges. And I would like to thank contributors of this project, Chaitanya, Paulo, Mohit, who have contributed a lot to this project. Chaitanya helped me with mobile application. I would also like to thank APIsecurity.io for publishing this tool as part of their API security newsletter, which helped this project reach to a lot of number. And again, there are other projects or repositories like Mind API, OWASP, Vulnerable Web Applications Directory, Awesome API Security. A shout out to these as well for considering including vAPI as a part of useful resource for learning API security. So thanks to these guys. These are some of the references that you can check. And thank you all for having me. I'm open to questions. If you have any, you can also join this Slack channel and shoot any questions.